Good. All right, I'm going to get started. So again, welcome. Thanks for coming to our monthly webinar series. This series that we've been doing for the last, I think since January now, it feels like, has been a Bridging the Gap conference preview series. Many of you may know we have a conference coming up in July named Bridging the Gap, and these are the type of topics we're going to be talking about in that conference. So today the topic is building a strong culture in accounting firms. And to me, a culture is the base for everything. This is my personal opinion. I won't get too deep into that now because we have a panel here today where we're going to talk about a lot of this, but culture is really, really important in my mind to everything we do in our profession, in every profession, honestly. A little more information on the conference. If you want to get any more information, you can scan that QR code, or you can just go to btgconference.com. It's Bridging the Gap Conference, July 22nd through 24th in Rosemont, Illinois, which is basically O'Hare Airport. Easy in, easy out. Really, really exciting information we'll be sharing at that conference. And as I guess a little bit of a last minute, not plea, but I guess sense of urgency. Today is the last day of early bird pricing for the conference. So pricing goes up tomorrow. So if you have any interest at all or want to find out more information about it, go to that link and you can see more. Want to thank FreshBooks. FreshBooks is our diamond sponsor, which is our highest sponsor level. Many of you know FreshBooks, but just to get more information on them, they're a cloud-based accounting software. They're tailored for service businesses, accounting professionals. They've got a really cool thing that they launched last year, which is collaborative accounting. A little more information on them, just really powerful technology and features, really user-friendly. Collaborative accounting is you really should take a look at that. They have a partner program for accountants. And in addition, their support is first class. So if you want more information on FreshBooks, go to that link down at the bottom, freshbooks.com/accountants, and get more information. And you can talk to them at the Bridging the Gap conference. Before we get into the presentation, a little housekeeping. This is available for CPE. To get your CPE, you need to stay logged in for at least 50 minutes. Obviously, their CVent tracks that, so we'll know if you're logged in or not. And you'll need to answer 3 of the 4 polling questions. They're very easy questions. There's no right or wrong answer. So you'll just need to answer 3 of 4 of those. And I will announce when those are up. We're not going to really stop, but I'll give you a quick interruption and make sure you all know those questions are up so you can answer them. Your certificates will be emailed to the email address you registered with. I say within a week. I think it's probably quicker. Check your spam and junk folders to make sure that they didn't go in there, because occasionally that happens. The slides are also going to be sent to you. I think they should be available here in the resources tab under CVent as well. And this recording will go on YouTube probably as early as later today. So if you enjoy it and want to send other people to see it, it'll be up there on the Tri-Merit YouTube channel. And then when we're doing this presentation today, ask questions. We'll try to get to them. We have a lot that we want to discuss, but if there's questions that we can get to, we'd like to do that. So put that in the Q&A tab. Haley's behind the scenes monitoring that, and so we will get to your questions, hopefully, as they pop up. All right, I want to introduce the panel with me today. Really, really a strong panel of people who have a strong passion for culture. And in Kristen Keats' Joy, also a strong passion for bringing joy to accounting. So Kristen, let me give you a second to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Randy. So happy to be here. Yes, my name is Kristen Keats. I've been a CPA for a long, long time, mostly in the tax world. In 2019, I founded my company called Breakaway Bookkeeping and Advising with the goal of bringing joy to accounting, and subsequently bought a tax firm, and we started an outsourced firm down in Guadalajara, Mexico, that mainly services accounting called Cadencia. Yeah, I'm on the FreshBooks Partner Council. I would love to talk about their culture today, as well as our own. I'm on the Intuit Tax Council and your own Bridging the Gap Advisory Council. So I want to tell people, yes, please get registered, because this conference is so cool, and it's going to be, I think, even better this year than it was last year. So I'm really, really excited for that.
All right. Well, thank you, Kristen. A pleasure to have you here. Our next panelist today is Roman Villard. Roman also loves to go full send. Did I use that correctly in a sentence?
You did. Yeah.
All right. And I'll let Roman introduce himself.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. What's up, everybody? I'm Roman Villar, founder of Full Send Finance. We are an accounting and data strategy consulting firm located in Boulder, Colorado. I've been a CPA for a long time. I don't introduce myself as a CPA. I like to think of myself more as an advisor and a consultant in the accounting industry. Work with a lot of startups, and got into the accounting conference circuit last year, and Bridging the Gap was one of the first conferences that I attended. And gosh, such a high concentration of forward-thinking accounts. It was so fun, Randy. I cannot wait to go back here in the next, what are we, 8 weeks away?
Yeah, I think less than that even, but it's about that 7-8 weeks. So, and just so you know, everybody on this panel today will be speaking at the conference as well. And Roman has 2 sessions. I think Kristen has maybe 3 sessions. So, Roman, again, thanks for being here, and we'll get to the full panel here in a second. One more person to introduce, and Kelly Parks. Kelly will be our moderator today. I think in the advertisement it may have said I'm moderator, but Kelly is so much better at that than I am. So I'm gonna let Kelly introduce herself.
So wish me luck on moderating this crew, especially Randy. I am honored to be moderating this group. I consider all of you not just colleagues, but also friends. So I'm Kelly Parks. I am a Canadian certified professional bookkeeper. That's a very strong organization up here. I own Comwater's Cloud Account. I also consult with accounting firms, and I sell cloud accounting templates. And I work with a lot of our app partners. There is still an international trainer writer network for Intuit. I'm on that. I'm alumni of the FreshBooks Partner Council. And I'm certified. Oh, I'm on the advisory board for Bridging the Gap as well. And last year was awesome. Looking forward to it. I guess we're about 6 weeks out. And I think that's all I have to say about me. That's enough, Kelly.
All right, we'll get more in the conversation. Just myself, Randy Crabtree. If you've been on any of my webinars or our webinars, you've seen me. I get to do a lot of cool things for this profession, and that's just a list of them there. I'm not going to go through that. Quick learning objective. So bottom line is, understanding the role culture, how it affects us, what it affects our people and who we work with, how it affects our relationships with our clients, identifying key cultural elements, and then develop and implement strategies. How have we all implemented things to make sure that we have a culture that we're proud of in our organizations? And what does that do for the people we work with? Does that enhance employee engagement? Does that affect attraction and retention of employees? I think it does. And so we'll get into all this. It's going to be a little bit of a free flow conversation. We do have a list of questions. We'll probably get to a couple of these, and then we'll see where it goes. So Mark, if you want to throw everybody up there, we will start the discussion. Oh, look at this. Everybody coming on. All right. So Kelly, I will let you take over.
Okay, well, thank you. Hi, friendies. So I guess the first question is, and I'm gonna start at the bottom and work my way around for what I see. And the very first question is, what is culture, and how do you what do we think the word culture means? What do we think the whole concept of culture is? So let's start with Kristen. Could you give us how you define it?
I think, yeah, it's a very hard thing to define. It's kind of like, it when you see it type of thing. But for me, when I think about our culture at our firm, it's kind of like this environment. It's like a fish in a fishbowl, right? That doesn't know it's in water, but the water is all around it. That's what I think about the culture. And so I feel like it's part core values, part daily interaction. And part, it's just like all these little decisions that we make as leaders during the day that affects our overall firm culture. And so I think mostly it's made up of these little interactions that happen every day with us and our team and our clients.
Okay. Roman, let's go to you next. How do you define culture?
Well, I'll start with what it's not. And culture is not a word cloud on the wall. Culture is not a ping pong table in the office. Culture is a living and breathing thing. And the way that I think about it is culture is your MVP. It's your mission, it's your values, and your people, and how all of those things work together. And there's a lot within that realm, kind of like Kristen said. It's kind of like a fish and fishbowl, like you know when you see it. But that's how I think about culture.
Oh, okay. I know. I like the fish in the fishbowl thing, and I like that it's not a word cloud either. So I emojied those into the chat. Randy, how do you define culture? And buckle up, everybody. I bet it's not going to be a short answer.
Take a deep breath, Randy.
Okay. So for me, culture, very similar to what Kristen said at the beginning. I know when there's a good culture. I can see it. It's like you feel it, but defining it to me is so tough. And I love what Roman said. It's not a word cloud. It's not like, hey, we put up these cool posters on the wall and that makes us have a good culture. It says, hang on, or whatever those posters are out there.
Determination.
Determination. That is not a culture creator. In fact, in my mind, that's probably can even harm culture because it's so impersonal. So for me, I've looked at this quite a bit because when I was, hey, I gotta stop. Polls up. First poll is up. So I want everybody to know that first polling question is up right now. Get your answers in because we want you to get your CPE. All right, back to culture. So for me, you've all know I do a bunch of mental health presentations and burnout presentations, and this happens in our industry so much. And then I started to realize we don't seem to have this as a firm. And why is that? And I kept digging deeper and deeper, and I realized, you know what? I think it's the culture we've created. I think our culture helps us to avoid that. So and you're right. This is going to be a long answer.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, you get a point. Yeah, you don't even have to answer the polling question. You already get a credit for that. So when I looked at culture from a definition, I'm like, okay, what do other people say about culture? And the boring answer is, and I'm reading something here that from a presentation I do, but culture is a collective behavior, values, and beliefs that shape how a company operates. That's boring. I mean, whatever. That's what the definition I could see out there. Here's how I look at culture and why I think it's how I can define it, and people can say it different ways. But to me, I looked at it and say, okay, what is the culture then? How do I want to define it? And this isn't necessarily a definition, but it's what creates a great culture. And to me, I came up this one sentence, not one word. Boy, that would be awesome. If I can define this in one word, let's work on that. It'd be a long word.
On, Randy.
A compound word. But this is the thing that I always think about when I think about cultures. And weak cultures rely on rules. And that's a little probably strong because we all have to have some rules. But if we only based on rules, in my mind, that's going to create a weak culture. While strong cultures are based on or rely on relationships. So the longer answer is, for me, a culture is created and a culture is important because of the relationships that we have with not only internally, the people we work with, but outside, the people, the clients we have. That's also a culture potentially killer, a culture enhancer. That all ties into it. But for me, the culture starts with the people internally and the relationships that you have with the people you work with. Boom.
Randy, that makes me want to add on to my answer. Because I wanted to stress too that, like, whether you know it or not, or whether you're aware, you have a culture in your firm. The point is, like, be intentional about the culture that you want to create in your firm, because one exists. And so it's like, do you want to, what culture do you want to be, and be really intentional about setting the stage for that?
Yeah. Okay. And we're going to get to some of those things after, because you're right, Kristen. Everybody has a culture, It's like, is that culture nurturing? Does it foster growth? Does it foster inclusion? There's all kinds of elements. So I guess this kind of leads to our next question, and that is, what's an example of a culture outside of accounting that you admire? I'm actually going to jump in for 2 seconds, and that there are quite a few of our app partners that one of the defining things for me on whether, because I work with app partners, um, and one of them is defining whether I think that they have a culture that is kind and inclusive, allows for growth. So it is one of the things, and you all alluded to it, it's something that you feel. It may not necessarily be tangible. Okay, so let's go to Roman on that one. So again, what's an example of a culture outside accounting that you admire?
Outside of accounting, oh man, that's so hard because my life is all accounting. Yeah, when I think about culture, I think about some of our clients, quite honestly, who are building these SaaS companies, and they're trying to figure it out as they go, just like we all are. And there's a few clients in particular that have this this unspoken transparency about them, that everybody has a seat at the table and is able to provide input to the success of that company. And so we may have a couple of key stakeholders within the organization, the CEO, the COO, maybe the head of operations, something like that. And when we're able to have independent conversations with these folks that are all giving us the same or similar responses, that's an indicator to me that they're all on the same page, they're all moving the same direction, they're rowing the boat at the same speed. And so I look at our clients and say, like, okay, they've got to figure it out. They're communicating really effectively. They're on the same page. They're moving the same direction. And I admire a lot of our clients for that. So it's kind of a half answer, but that's how I think about interacting with people outside of our industry.
Yeah, actually, I am going to jump in super quick. I had a client, it was one of my favorite clients because of the culture that they had. And so when I first brought them on, I was only going to keep them for 2 years because they were going for funding. And so I was doing the catch up and cleanup. And I was invited to their Tuesday stand-ups where it wasn't all business, but at that point, it was me bringing them into our technology. And it was actually super fun. The first one, I was bringing them into Dex. And what the CTO basically raced everybody else to be onboarded and fully using the product. And it was hilarious. We were all laughing. And I'm like, okay, this is fun, slightly competitive. And like to see the CTO race everybody else to finish something while we're in a meeting, it had all of the right feels that I was with the right client. It just seemed like such a fun culture. Okay, Randy, what's an example outside of accounting?
Well, the way I look at this is I don't know if it's going to be the exact answer to the exact question, I guess, but it's similar to Roman a little bit. It's from a standpoint
wait a minute, Randy.
Yes.
Randy, so you're not going to give a concise answer to the actual question I asked?
Nope, going this way.
Now, is sarcasm good for culture? Because I think I just alluded it. Go ahead, Randy.
I use it a lot, so I believe it is. So a specific culture outside of accounting, all of them. I mean, not all of them, but there's many of them. So here's the cool thing. I think it's important to look at what your clients are doing and see what they're having success with and what is important to them. And then is there a way we can incorporate that? And the reason I say this is we are a very Sally industry, same as last year. We're based on, it goes back to that, we're based on rules. So if we're based on rules, we're doing the same thing over and over again. And, we've been doing this for 104 years. So why change it now? Because it's been working and we can make a lot of money in this profession. So it's very hard for us to look at things different, because why are we going to change anything? And so I'll use an example that, some friends of ours, all of us know, Kenji and Matthew at Acuity. When they talk about when they built their firm, they looked outside of the accounting profession to see what other firms were doing. And not only did that help them from a process and KPIs and all that, but it helped them from a standpoint of, yes, the culture doesn't have to be, people are tied to their desk 80 hours a week and you have to be in the office. And if you're not in the office, we're going to monitor your teams to make sure you're sitting at your desk 8 hours a day. That's the type of stuff. We have to learn in our profession more flexibility, more openness to change. We are very resistant to change, more openness to change. And we see this and especially, with the types of companies Roman probably works with, these startups and that, or the technology companies, like you said, Kelly, or all these companies, they're doing things different. They're seeing things different. And so from a standpoint, I think we just as a profession need to look outside of ourselves for inspiration. And there's a lot of great cultures out there, and we too often just stay with status quo. Jordan left?
Hey.
I think a couple of thoughts were going through my head as you were saying all that. So right about the time I was founding Breakaway, there's this book called It Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work. I don't know if you guys have read that. It's so good. It's a short little book, but it's so great. And so many of the things that they said in there helped me build the culture. And it's all just about just like it says, it doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be 80-hour weeks, but how do you do that? How do you kind of minimize that and keep everybody calm and keep everybody working normal hours? So that book helped me a lot. But, and I'm with you guys. I love to see what my clients are doing. And I think I always just take it back to core values, because we are so driven by our core values and everything that we do. And it's really interesting because once you get that mindset around your core values, you recognize when other companies are doing the same thing. And just like Roman said, you can see it. You're like, okay, I see what you're doing there. I see how, and maybe you could even try to guess what their core values are. And so maybe like Roman, the example that you were giving about the communication and moving in the same direction, it'd be really interesting to see if that company had that as part of their core values and really executed it. And how awesome is that for them that you can see that, and I hope you gave them that feedback, because I think as an owner of a company, it's always nice when people from the outside in can see what we're trying to do,
Yeah. And I'm going to play off that for a second, particularly off of the looking outside for inspiration on how to build a good culture. I can't recall where I heard this, but effectively this commentary was around how does leadership interface in a quality culture, and ultimately leadership should be reducing friction amongst teams and kind of let the sand flow. And so one way that we've done that as a hot tip is when you look at a standard org chart, you've got this pyramid structure down. Our org chart doesn't look like that. It's not necessarily a bottom up, but it's more like an hourglass. And so the leadership team sits in the middle. We've got our client-facing team up here. We've got an internal team down here. And our job as leadership is to make sure that the sand flows freely between all members of our teams. And so just from an optics standpoint, I think there's a culture element to understanding what leadership's role within the context of culture looks like, in terms of not necessarily how you delegate and how you manage, but how you open up access to information and create less friction within the organizations in your company.
Yeah, and if I can build off of that, because I think this is a good segue, Roman. Everybody says such great things. It's so easy for me to yeah, that's awesome. But to that point, and I'm not great. I don't look at myself as a leader. Other people say I don't think so. I honestly don't. But what I do is to try. You were talking about your structure with the hourglass. I love that because I don't want this, or everybody looks at Andy, who's our managing partner, or me, because I'm a co-founder, as this unapproachable person, and we're everything goes up here. No, everything is all over. And I have a story that I love to that. Now, how do we do that? That's a discussion we can have in a little bit. But the results of that are we do corporate retreats, full company retreats twice a year, fly everybody into a central location. A year and a half ago, we were in San Diego, and we had a outside photographer there taking pictures of us, and using that for our marketing or whatever we used it for. And in that meeting, the photographer talked to one of the people I work with, and he was talking to her. He said, I do these things all the time, And this is the first time I cannot tell who the leaders of this business are. And it was because, one, the culture that I can't define, but the culture we created means everybody's equal. Everybody's the same. Everybody gets along. There's no cliques. I mean, there's different personalities, but, nobody's afraid to, hang out and have a beer with me or with Andy or any of the other partners, or give me crap either, or be sarcastic. We encourage that. And so the result of that is, yes, people see it from the outside. We can talk about how you get there in a bit, but that, I think, is what, Roman, when you said that, that was spot on.
Yeah, I love the hourglass sort of thing and the sands of with the sands
Yeah, we
of
want to
time.
see your org chart. I want to see that.
Yeah, happy to share that. Right now we're a small company, so there's not like we got a bunch of hypothetical roles in there, but I think it's unique, it's different, and it really goes along with how we want to present ourselves as leadership within that structure.
And I just want to announce the poll number 2 is up, so make sure you all get your answer to that poll. I didn't even read the poll for you last time, but just so you all know, it's very, very easy. Are you still here? Yes or no? And even if you say no, you get credit. So are you still here? That's just make sure you answer this one to get your credit. All right.
I'm such a rule follower. I always say yes. You can tell who the rebels are.
Right?
So now. Yeah.
Well, that's the culture we've created. It's okay to be wrong.
That's nice.
So we sort of started in on it. Roman, you started with the hourglass. What do you do? Did we already ask this question? Yes.
No.
What do you do in your firm to create a positive culture?
Nope. Let's keep
know
going
that.
with that. This is, I think, the
Okay,
to-dos now. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to start with Roman then. What do you do to create a positive culture? Actually,
Yeah.
do you have a word that defines what you think a positive culture is, and how do you get there?
Yeah. So for us, there's a few ways in which we accomplish like operationalizing culture in a really tactical sense. One, the name of our company is called Full Send. And in the wild, that really means like you're 100% committed, you're all in on whatever it is you're doing. And then for us, we've kind of taken that and defined it internally to say, hey, what is your version of Full Send? What is the thing that makes you come alive? And it's one of those things where it's different for everybody. And it could be, going on long walks. It could be traveling. It could be mountain biking, whatever it is that makes you come alive. We want to help you experience that in your personal life and to also achieve a degree of professional fulfillment alongside of that journey because work plays such a big role in all of our lives. So we've got that element. Now, the way we tactically operationalize that is we say, hey, we've established a Full Send fund in which we allocate money to a percentage of gross revenue every single month that goes into a specific account that's allocated to our team members on a monthly basis that they can use on whatever it is that's Full Send for them. And so they've got a piggy bank where they can take this money and say, hey, I'm going to go spend this on a new book, or I'm going to save up to travel, things like that. The other element of that, there's, I guess, a few of them. One of them is on these bigger Full Sends. Like one in particular, a good example that I had was a gentleman Full Send with soccer, particularly Manchester United, and never been to a game before. And I was like, hey, let's figure out a way to tie a longer term milestone objective in your tenure here to this goal. And we'll buy you a ticket to go to Manchester, England, go to a Man U game, and we'll comp all of that. So like being able to tie it and individualize it, maybe at a large scale company is a little bit more difficult, but I think the individualization of culture is so important. And to the extent that you can do that, certainly something I'd recommend.
Okay, so are you hiring?
We are indeed. Yeah.
Yeah,
If there's any
cool.
senior
Talk about
accountants out there
putting
listening.
your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's difficult to operationalize, right? Like there's a lot of elements to it. And like you got to continually reinforce that this thing is there and you want people to use it because you don't want people to be so entrenched in their work that they forget about these things that we want them to utilize and explore. So it's a learning process for us, just as it is anybody.
I love it.
Yeah, love that. Okay, Kristen, go.
Okay, so as you guys know, and I said in my bio, I actually am involved in 3 different companies. And so while we really share the same like mission and core values, it's been really interesting in how they get executed for the different ones. So like Breakaway, same as Full Send, like Breakaway Bookkeeping Accounting. The whole reason for our name is it's about breaking away. It's about doing your own thing. And we call ourselves like the band of rebels. And it's interesting how that culture has gotten embraced by the folks that have become breakaway advisors. And it's like, it's awesome to see. We have a Slack channel and I love getting on there to see that people have taken this vision that I had and just gone in so many different directions than I would have never taken it if I was just leading it. And so that's like really cool to see. And then in Sherwood Tax, you know, we're really more about, we're kind of a more traditional firm in the sense that, you know, it's a tax firm. And so we do things more traditionally, but I think by having, like, we have a daily stand-up meeting similar to your client. We have a daily stand-up and then we are touching base all the time. So I think like the theme at Sherwood Tax is about team, and our culture here really revolves around that we're looking out for each other. We have each other's back. So I'm hoping that our clients see that in the same way that Roman saw it in his client. I hope that our clients are recognizing that as well. And then with Cadencia, our theme over there is called Building Bridges. And so similarly, everything that we do, it's about like reaching out, like, hey, how can you reach out and help the other person? How do we build a bridge with our clients? How do we build a bridge between us and Mexico? How do we, you know, really create a community that in a fully remote, obviously situation, we're in 2 different countries. How do we build those bridges and keep them? And so those things are always top of mind for me whenever we're having those interactions.
Can I come back to something, Kristen? Because some people might not know this. You have the, I'm not going to call it a complication, but you have this other thing running background noise that some of the folks on the call may not know, and that is Cadencia, which is an outsourcing company, is in Mexico.
Yes.
So you also have to deal with the culture of another country. And so not everybody here may know that.
Yes.
And it was interesting to listen to you and Matthew, and oh, we love her. Zuni. Because you're all, and the one thing that stuck with me that all 3 of you said is that the outsourcing, the people that you are using in the other countries are still human beings. They're not bots.
That's right.
And you know, you can see that in some of the outsourcing companies. You can feel that their culture is that these are our people, they're not bots. And then you can feel it in some of the other outsourcing companies that it's like, no, we got machines going over here. And also to Kristen's point, if there is a breakaway event at a conference, I am not a breakaway because I already had my business running for a long time. But Kristen, am I sliding in on them because I love your culture so much? Am I not sliding in?
And you're always
there?
welcome to, by the way. We love it. We love anyone to participate that we show up at, because that's what we're about too. And so we kind of get famous for like the breakaway pool parties or the Cadencia cabanas. You know, we kind of we love that part of our culture too that you guys get to see. But yeah.
So,
it's interesting about the outsourcing things because I just had this conversation yesterday with a potential Cadencia client, and we were talking. He was asking if our employees get poached much, and I was like, they really haven't. Like our turnover has been really, really low there, and they were saying that one of the India outsourced teams that they were working with says that they got poached a lot from Big Four. I'm like, they're getting poached from, that's a huge culture problem. Then that means they need to work on stuff internally, in my opinion, because I think that folks will, you know, yes, folks will leave for money, but I mean, if you're running your firm right and paying your people appropriately, if they're leaving for Big Four, you got to take a real hard look at how those folks are getting treated.
well, I actually have and it relates both to your client and team members, and that is nobody stole your team, nobody stole your clients, you lost them. You did that. And I think that leads back to culture in a lot of ways. Okay,
I always
Randy.
liken it to like, sorry, I'm going to say one more thing, one more analogy. I always liken it to being in a marriage, even though I'm married right now. But like, if you are worried about your spouse leaving, or like you can't be obsessed with like your employees quitting or getting poached away, or your clients either. All you can do is be the best spouse / employer / you know, service provider that you can possibly be, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, for sure. So Randy, what do you do in your firm to create a positive culture for your team?
Oh boy, we're going to run out of time.
We still got 25 minutes. We're good.
All right. So I'm going to have two answers probably. I'll try to keep it to two. But as I said at the beginning, relationships are the key to culture in my mind. Relationships, getting to know the people you work with. So from that standpoint, there's a few things we do that I think help build and make strong relationships. First is we get to know the person, outside of work. We want people to have outside of work passions. We want them to go full send on their weekends. We want them to have joy. We want that. We want these things to come in. And so we regularly allow people to share who they are on Teams calls. We're a fully remote business. And we didn't even say that at the beginning. 70 people fully remote. And some people think you can't build a culture when you're remote, and they're wrong. Sorry if you're the ones that thought that, but you're wrong. You can. And so one of the things we do is just at the end of a Teams call, we're having a meeting, business development is having a meeting, marketing's having a meeting, project management's having a meeting, whatever. At the end of one of those calls, one person gets the opportunity, and people ask for it to share who they are. They get 15 minutes to be on the end of that call, 10 minutes. If it takes longer, it takes longer. And they can do it however they want, whatever fits their personality. They can do a slideshow. They can, carry their kids into the room and hold them in front of the camera, their pets. They can show things that are important to them. They can talk about things that are important to them.
Oh, it's like kindergarten show and tell.
It is show and tell. And when we started it, that's what it was originally called, was show and tell. And we probably should keep calling it that. So that's one thing, because when you know the person at a personal level, what their personal passions are, and everybody knows I'm a big fan of John Garrett. Well, John Garrett obviously has an impact. Anybody that doesn't know, John Garrett wrote the book "What's Your And," and what your and is, you are not your job title. You are your and, which is, you're a mountain climber, you're a snowboarder, you're a wine enthusiast. You love reading books. That's what you are. And that's what we want to get to know. So for us, on the first level, we want to know the individual at their level, allow them to be themselves at work. And that helps with that. Another thing I do, and try to make this quick, is just whenever we have a new hire, my assistant, who came from a Cadencia and is in Guadalajara area, she sets up a call with this new person, and hopefully they don't freak out like, who is this guy? Who is Randy, and why is Randy calling me? But the whole point of the call is I want to get to know the person right away. So we don't talk about work at all. We just get on a call, and I'll tell them what I like doing, which is hiking and craft beer and sports and all these, and they'll tell me, they feel open to tell me, and I get to know that person at a deeper level. So that relationship, go to that relationship is important. And then I'll stop at that end, but I want to add one more thing, because we did mention leadership. This still goes to this question, I think. We talked about leadership, and again, a Romans hourglass, and what everything Kristen said, but Kristen said this at the beginning, culture there's intentionality behind it. You have to be intentional. And so when we ask, what do you do to create a positive culture? As leaders, but everybody affects the cultures. But if the leaders don't live it, then it's going to hurt it. I think it still can come from somebody who's not in leadership, and you can start small and just start to do what you think is important. And I think when people see it, it'll grow. But leaders have to have certain things. You have to be intentional about it, for sure. You have to think about culture and not just think about billable hours, which if that's all you think about, you're not going to have a culture. Not thinking about profitability on projects. If you're going to think that, the culture is going to get hurt. Start just thinking about the relationships. Leaders need to be vulnerable. They need to show that it's okay to not know everything, to have problems with stuff, to say, people, I don't know how to do that. Can you teach me that? Or be vulnerable. I believe I'm very vulnerable. When I talk about the mental struggles I went through after my stroke, doing that kind of thing, showing people it's okay to talk about this stuff. Another key aspect that you need to do as a leader is be I put these kind of together. Empathetic and can have compassion. You have to really put yourself in someone else's shoes and see what they're going through too. And vulnerability ties into that, to not be able to, live this lie of, hey, everything's always great. And, hey, yeah, sure, I'm working the weekends, but
Toxic positivity.
yeah, exactly. And then transparency ties into all that. So there's some leadership qualities I think are important that I think, have installed in Tri-Merit, and I think everybody kind of lives that. That helps create a culture, positive culture. Poll number 3 is up.
Okay. And it stuck with me, Randy. Kristen, you can answer no. Come on, just do it.
I'm answering no.
Okay, I answered no too, and it totally
I felt
felt
so
wrong.
naughty.
Oh dear. Kristen,
Rules follower.
That. Yeah, we'll unpack that coming up because we got a few conferences together. Okay, I want to go back to Randy, what you said about how you get on the call with new hires. And I know you have told me this before, and I thought that was really interesting because the new hires, you may not be interacting with them at a level of work things. And I thought that was still, it stuck with me that you do that you get on with the new hires and ask about them as human beings. So, I mean, all 3 of you, I could go on and on about the things I admire about you, but it's funny, these things that stick. Okay. And so how does your culture affect your employee engagement? And I think let's go to Kristen on this one. Kristen, what are you going to do? Are you going to pick a company, or are you going to talk about all 3? We touched on this a little on attrition.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, I can probably talk. Yeah, I can talk about them individually, but we actually had a situation in this last week that, I mean, culture, it's almost like it's a direct impact to employee engagement, good or bad. We had a situation last week. I mean, I'm kind of going to Randy's point about being vulnerable, where we had to let go a really a key person in one of the organizations, and it kind of affects everybody because our organizations kind of cross over. So for example, for sure with tax, we have 4 Cadencia team members. So they really are intertwined, and same with Breakaway, they have Cadencia team members. So when something happens at one, it kind of have this ripple effect to the other companies. And I mean, I had to get real vulnerable with the team because, I mean, they had to see me as a leader, really kind of not knowing what to do necessarily in a situation, but just being real with them about how I was feeling and how I was working through some of the stuff. And so, I mean, it's probably not in the leadership books. Maybe I might go too far in this way sometimes, but I think it helps the team see that I have compassion and empathy. And when something big like this happens, that it affects me, that I'm not this cold person that it doesn't affect, it impacts me deeply, but also I tell them the why, and I go back to the core values, and I go back to the reason. And so I tell them, hey, if we have to make a decision like this that sucks and it's really, really painful, you have to know that there's a reason for it. And the reason is our core values. And so I'm always bringing them back to that. I'm always just reiterating that. So it doesn't feel random. It doesn't feel scary, because anytime someone leaves, it creates this uncertainty, for everybody. And so I think if I can keep bringing them back to that, it will help hopefully keep things calm, keep things steady, and say, okay, no, even though she fumbles around sometimes, I can see that the eye on the prize, and that really main focus of keeping to that mission and the values.
So again, all 4 of us, we've got a regular crew of friends that we're pretty close with, and all different sides of firms that they own. I would say that the one thing that I really see in these people that I admire so much is that authenticity, is that so what Randy said, the engagement with the employees, but the authenticity that you just mentioned, Kristen, I don't think we have a single one of these firm leaders that we see and engage with that isn't empathetic. And I wonder if that's what draws some of us together. We're not, could I say it? We're not hanging around with the assholes. Because
you just did. So I guess you can say it.
It's your next poll question.
How are you hanging around with assholes? But I mean,
she doubles down.
All
Add
right.
to that authenticity, that
Kelly's
caring,
mic gets cut.
that genuine. I mean, that
Yes.
is a top
Yes.
down thing. And Kristen, you lean into that hard. Randy, you lean into it hard. And Roman, you're about as genuine as they come. And okay, so anyways, off to Roman so that I stop swearing and things, right?
You
Do you
got
want
to
the
look out.
question again, Roman?
No, I've got it. You got to look out for Kelly. So how does culture driving employee engagement? I'm going to take a more of a tactical approach to this in that I think one overlooked thing as far as culture goes that I'm kind of alluding to in my presentation for Bridging the Gap, because I'm competing with Chad Davis in his automation session. So I got to play it up a little bit. But he, in the realm of culture and creating engagement, you have to ensure that you have the right internal infrastructure, the right technology to allow culture to exist really in a fluid manner. And so things for us that amplify and help increase engagement are things like Slack, right? We've got a full send channel where every single week we share what we did that was full send that weekend. We share about our puppies, our kids, and all these fun things going on. And what that does is it creates an openness and comfortability to bring up things that are more client related or more specific in terms of things that we need to get done. Another way in which we achieve that is by having an internal company, almost like a Wikipedia. It's a resource library built on Notion that has access to absolutely everything, to where information is available when you need it. And so it doesn't seem like that necessarily ties to culture, but when you allow technology to help open up access to information, to communication, it really allows for a much better, less friction centric environment where you can have a little bit more fun, you can have a little bit more banter and a little bit more lively engagement. And so a component of culture that I think is really important is also looking at technology and how you're enabling the flow of information. So some thoughts on how to increase engagement there.
It's a really great point, Roman. Is
Yeah,
bringing
I
in
love
the
that.
tech
I think
side of
Slack
it.
is
Yeah,
really great for that. I love it for that too.
yeah, awesome. Randy, how does your culture affect your employee engagement?
So I look at this a couple of ways. One, we're accountants, and so we like to measure things. We like to show what the results are. We like to be able to say, hey, this has an effect on things. And so from our standpoint, one, I mean, there's a few things you can measure and see what culture has done for us. And I can talk about the revenue metrics and all that. And we have been named one of the 5,000 fastest growing privately held companies in the U.S. the last 2 years. So I tie that to culture. I say we don't do that without the people we have, and people don't. They shouldn't, and I don't think they do, work crazy hours or anything. We don't expect that. We expect you to have a 9 to 5. No, we don't expect you to have a 9 to 5 job. We expect you to get your work done when you want, where you want, how you want. We had one of our employees that spent 6 months in what is it now? I forget the name of the country, but let's say it's Argentina. It was Argentina, but we're going to pretend it was Argentina. Just went there for 6 months.
Is this a new country that just came into existence?
Oh, wait, hold on. We're going to go with
It's Randentina.
Colombia. That's what it was. Colombia.
Very close. Same continent. We're good.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm not really good with geography. So we had another person.
Nick knew.
Went to,
He knew where he was.
went to Europe for 2 months. That's fine. We'll give that freedom. So, but the bottom line is, what does that result in? Yes, we've grown very fast. Yes, we're very profitable. Have been. Profitability has been good. It's not based. And another thing that I just want to get in here, because I think it's so important, we never bill by the hour. And I think that's a culture killer. So I had to get that worked in here somewhere. But I think billing by the hour, I think tracking hours is one of the worst culprits to kill a culture. That's just, nobody wants to do it. Nobody does do it. And when they do it, they don't do it right anyways. And it takes 5% of their time that they could have been doing something else. So we don't do that, and we'll still be able to figure out profitability in our business, and we have a good idea job. So from a revenue standpoint, yes, you can measure that. In my mind, our culture has affected that. 2, employee engagement directly. in 17 years, and I always quote that we've lost 7 people voluntarily leave, which is an outrageous number. I mean, from a standpoint that nobody leaves. We just had another person leave this week. So I have to start quoting 8. But the last 3 people that left did not go to do something else in our profession, did not go to work with a competitor. One went to go teach law school. One went to go to medical school. And this last person, her father owns a business. He's getting close to retirement. He wanted her to come in and learn the business because he wants her to take it over. We celebrate that stuff. So when we do lose people, it's because they get a super exciting opportunity to go. And so culture not only retains people, culture also attracts people, because we don't have a problem finding people, because everybody tells their friends and family about Tri-Merit and working there. So if you want to measure the results, those are 2 ways that I can prove that our culture has affected us positively.
You know what's more impactful to me in what you just said, Randy, that I think signals a better culture than anything you said was the fact that you know those 8 people, where they went and why they went. Like you knowing those things, the intentionality behind like caring for your employees in that way and knowing who they are and supporting them in those efforts, like that says more about culture than retention from the get-go. So I applaud that.
Well, thank you. It's the relationship. If you base it on relationships, you're going to know that in my mind. So.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting. We talked earlier about it was cultures we admire outside of the accounting industry. But there's when you talk about it's not just retaining employees, it's finding them. And you see some of those firms. Do you ever like when a posting goes up for a firm that we love the culture, that there's a hot minute when you think you're going to leave your own company and go to theirs? Or that's just me?
I'm too old
I'm sure
to
they
go anywhere
hire
else.
me. Like if I had to pass, right, I'm not employable. So if I had to pass a test or something, but there's always that hot minute. It's like, oh God, live CAs, one man, right?
Kelly, we'll talk later.
Okay. Okay. So then we're down to the last question. We got 8 minutes. I'm gonna have Roman and Kristen go first, Randy, so that they can get something in. And so, how does D, E, I, and B factor into enhancing your culture? And Roman, you brought up the B, so do you want to define D, E, I, and B first, and then let us know how it factors in?
Yeah. So for us, gosh, there's so much to unpack in this conversation. I'll focus a little bit on the belonging side, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what background you come from, doesn't matter where in the world you're located. Like we want everybody to have the same experience, the same acceptance, the same opportunity for learning and things like that. And so one way that we do that tactically, I always like to bring it back to something tactical. So for us, we are very intentional about how we treat our team, how our team treats one another, and then how our team and our clients interact with one another. And so we contractually, in our agreements with our clients, set out client expectations. And we say, hey, here's our expectation for how you will communicate with us. If we ever have any sense of harassment, disparagement, or any type of inappropriate behavior towards our team, that will lead to a terminated contract immediately. And we actually had a circumstance in early part of this year in Q1 where we did let a client go, one of our largest clients. We let them go because at the end of the day, the mental health of one of our team members was suffering drastically because of how she was being spoken to by a client. And that hurts a lot because I want to make sure that she's in the best position professionally and personally to succeed in life. And we made the hard decision to let this client go. And it was very amicable, and we explained the situation, and we introduced them to other firms, like with the context to the firms of like, hey, here was our experience. We do believe that there could be reconciliation here. But we want to make sure contractually that we're protecting our team and creating an environment of inclusivity and belonging.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah, that's
talking
that's
about
great.
belonging.
Oh,
It's because
go ahead.
we were talking the other day about DE&I, and Roman brought up that we need to have belonging as part of that as well, which I thought was key. Kristen, on to you.
We belong answering a polling question right now. So I just want everybody to make sure they answer this last polling question. All right, go ahead, Kelly.
Okay. Yeah, so for us, when we founded Breakaway, this was something that at the very beginning we knew that we wanted to be intentional about. And so I'll just give a quick background. Just legally, Breakaway is structured as a franchise. And so just as an example, usually we could, or legally we could charge like a franchise fee for folks to come in and become Breakaway advisors. But we decided not to do that because we wanted to just make sure that we had that equity and inclusion, because we knew that we wanted diversity to be a big part of who we are. And I'm really proud that, we've been really good at that, at getting that diversity on our Breakaway team. And I think that helps, but it's just something that we always keep in front of mind. And I think part of it too is that we're on our way to becoming a B Corp, and that's part of the B Corp values too. And one of the reasons why we wanted to become a B Corp, because we really wanted to incorporate that philosophy and bake it into who we are. And so again, I think it just goes back to that intentionality and just really wanting it, because diversity, like Randy said, it makes your organization better, because if everyone thinks like me and acts like me and looks like me, that doesn't help move us down the field any. But I think it's because of that diversity that we have in the organization that it's gone to places that I could have never predicted or planned for.
Yeah.
Right.
And go ahead, Randy.
Well, I was going to jump in just because we only have a few minutes, but Kristen just mentioned something that I actually talked about last week, not on this webinar. No,
I see you so much, Randy. I got it confused.
But that was, I'm very glad that you paid attention to my presentation. That's awesome. I'll wrap it up with the DE. Do you say DE and I? No, DEI and B, I guess is the right way to say it. And I'm very excited. We're going to have a session on this at the conference. So if anybody wants to hear more, this will be at the conference as well. But one thing that Roman said that I think is one of the best culture creators is when you see that there's a client that's giving an employee issue, your employees, I don't even want to say employees, the people you work with, the other team members, however you want to say it, because I work for everybody in our firm. Nobody works for me. That you let that client go, you know how thrilled they are. Do you know how much they appreciate that? Do you know what a culture creator that is? Yes, Roman has my back. Kristen has my back. Kelly has my back. I'm important to this organization. I'm so important that we're going to let this client go. I want to go a step further on that employees, we're pretty fast at seeing if we hired somebody and there's red flags and they're going to hurt the culture. We don't have people voluntarily leave, but we have an internal policy, which I'm not sure I should say this like this or not, but it's no jerks allowed. And if we see somebody that is coming in with not the same, we're all friends, we get along mentality, we'll be quick to change that. So.
Can I make one more comment with 2 minutes left?
Go ahead.
Everybody in the hiring process looks for culture fits. I think that is a dangerous game to play, because if you look for a culture fit, you look for people that fit and think and behave like you do, and they assemble into this culture that exists. I would prefer to think of it as you're looking for culture adds. You're looking at somebody that can bring a different element, bring a different perspective into creating an addition to your culture and not just fitting within it. So I'll leave it at that.
That's perfect. And then the last thing I was going to say ties in with that, and Kristen said this as well.
Roman.
Bringing it home for sure, but I can't help myself. I'm going to continue bringing it home. Is that exactly what Kristen said? For the first 10 years of our first 7 years of our business, I think I hired clones of myself, and we grew nicely, but we didn't grow crazily. When we realized that diversity, not only in whatever where someone's from or their ethnic background or anything like that, their sex or anything, diversity there is so important. But even diversity of what Roman just said, skills and thoughts and passions. When we started getting intentional about making sure that everybody wasn't a clone of Randy, which is a terrible company to run, you have a lot of fun, but it's a terrible company to run. That's when we took off from a growth standpoint. So diversity from a standpoint, well, how does it affect culture? It affects culture so positively, and it affects just the way that you grow your firm. So I can't stress enough how important the DEI and B is. All right, I'm going to wrap it up unless anybody has some final thing to say. We're about to hit time. All right, Mark, can you put my
This
slides
way,
back
Randy.
up? Yep. Mark, slides, please. Thank you. All right, so one last thing. Obviously, we've been talking about Bridging the Gap a few times. That's what this is all about, this preview series. These are the types of things that you're going to hear at the conference. So again, go scan that if you want to get any information. Just not a hard sell or anything, but bottom line is just letting you know that early bird pricing ends today. So just wanted you to all know that. And I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank Roman, Kristen, and Kelly for being here. It's always great to talk to them. You can see the information and the passion, the information they have to share, but the passion they have, not only for this profession, but for their firms and the people they work with, and what that is translated into them. So I can't thank them enough for sharing. And as you heard Roman say, he will be talking about this type of things at the conference, as will Kristen and Kelly and I. So thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate taking an hour and 50 minutes out of your, or 50 seconds out of your time to be with us, and have a great weekend.